Hello and welcome to Ask the Experts. In this particular session, you are now staring at a set of experts. They're going to take you through embracing a new way of working in Microsoft 365. A lot of what we're going to talk about is the context of files, tasks, and lists inside of Microsoft Teams, but even outside of Microsoft Teams, because our experts certainly know their products deeply, with a lot of integration in Teams for that collaborative work management. We want you to leave this session with no question unanswered, and we'll certainly have a lot to share. I first want to introduce myself. My name is Mark Cashman. I'm on the Microsoft 365 marketing team, and I focus a lot on SharePoint, the SharePoint experiences in Teams, and I get to be the product manager for Microsoft Lists. With me here on camera, I want to first introduce Randy Wong. He is from the OneDrive team. Randy?
Hi, all. Great to be here today. My name is Randy Wong. I'm a program manager on the OneDrive team.
And if you have any lists questions, we have Michaela Barrett. She is from the Microsoft Lists engineering team. Michaela.
Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm a PM for Microsoft Lists, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
And to round out the expertise, we've got two more, one on-camera introduction, and that is Howard Crow. Howard Crow comes from the tasks side of everything with Planner, with the history and project. Howard, I will let you tell more about you.
Good morning, good day, good evening, everybody. My name is Howard Crow. I am a program manager on the Planner team and also the project team. So if you have any questions about that, I can answer those as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Randy, Michaela, and Howard. Just so you get a face to a name, if you don't see us all the time, you might hear us speaking when we're answering questions. We also have a slew of Microsoft MVPs from around the world that are experts in this area of collaborative work management. They know Microsoft Teams well, and they, in their day-to-day, use as individuals these products, but also on behalf of their customers, consulting, problem solving, and showcasing everything that you can do. So we want to get started. Don't hesitate to start asking questions. That's the whole point of this whole session, is to ask your question, whether it's a hard question, just one that you can't find the answer to. If it's feedback about the product, we love that. I've got a few that I've seen that will get started, and I will prompt Howard first. So Howard, get your brain ready. Can you explain the tasks strategy across Microsoft 365? What the team is focused most on when people are using Planner, they're using Microsoft To Do maybe, or they're in Teams using the new tasks in Teams. Would love to hear a little bit more behind the strategy of tasks throughout Microsoft 365.
Yeah, sure thing, Mark. Yeah, we really think about To Do and Planner as kind of a little bit of a shared platform that we have for managing tasks, both for individuals and for teams. And then we see those tasks showing up in our major hubs. And the hubs we define as really sort of Office 365, that experience, Outlook, and Teams. And so what you've seen recently is the new experience in Teams that we're just rolling out right now, which is sort of a combination of To Do and Planner inside that hub. We've been working on getting To Do or sort of like your personal tasks. And so when we think about To Do, we really think about my stuff, the things I need to do. And those show up inside Outlook, along with things in Planner that are assigned to you. So in Planner, we think about that as sort of the teamwork sort of task management app where you're working with a team of folks, but anything that's assigned to you within Planner shows up in To Do. And so there's an assigned to me list inside To Do, and that sort of reflects everything in Planner that you're really sort of top of mind for you, and you can add that to your My Day and that kind of thing. So To Do and Planner really are sort of, as a pair, like, peanut butter and chocolate together. And let you manage your stuff as well as your team's stuff. And then we see that sort of reflecting up in all the different hubs across Microsoft. And then I'll add one other thing is that our dream is that you can sort of capture tasks inside of all your experiences. And so we recently released some features inside of Office documents where you can sort of capture a task inside there, sort of turn a comment into a task. And we see that growing over time in the number of different places where you can just turn something into a task to remind yourself later to get that done. So for example, we're working in Teams to be able to turn a chat into a task and really be able to capture tasks anywhere you are sort of in the flow of work. So that's it in one breath.
I think that's wonderful, and honestly, question really I think maybe was prompted on what you were saying, and to be honest, was a question that I sent your team a couple of months ago specific to Outlook. This question, though, is more around within Microsoft Teams. They're asking, will the My Day feature coming from will that show up in the Tasks for Teams app?
Yeah, that's absolutely something that we're looking at. It's one of the first requests we got when we started shipping it out that we would get that we got pretty good feedback on. It seems like people really like that My Day feature and they're going to want to see that everywhere. So yeah, we're working on that.
Okay, well, I think we just have your first Ignite task that we're going to assign to Howard. So next up in the hot seat is Michaela. This is going to be a question around Microsoft Lists.
Yeah.
It really is that basis of where we've come from, I think, is the genesis of the question. People saying, I have used SharePoint lists for quite some time, and now Microsoft Lists comes on board. What do I need to do to prepare for Microsoft Lists? Do I need to migrate a list? Do I need to upgrade or turn some feature on? Can you explain a little bit about what's behind that notion of SharePoint Lists, the move now to Microsoft Lists?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like Mark mentioned, the Microsoft Lists is an evolution of the existing SharePoint list product. And so that means on day 0, when you see the new list icon in your waffle, you click on it, and what you're going to have access to is every single list you've ever had access to in your entire history of being in the Microsoft 365 suite. So there's no migration, there's no tools needed, there's no transferring between different locations. The Lists app really is that portal into all of your different lists that you could possibly have. So if you've been working in a team site with the familiar SharePoint lists, those will all appear inside of your lists home from the very beginning. The second that you get a chance to even look at that, you'll start seeing all of your content. And then extending the question a little bit, the features that you'll see inside of Microsoft Lists also extend into SharePoint Lists. It's a single product everywhere. So what you would be using in Teams is the same as what you'd have in Microsoft Lists, which is the same as SharePoint Lists. But that list home experience really gives you a place for all of your lists to live and let you filter on it.
Excellent. So I think I've heard you and your peer Lincoln Damaris say a list is a list is a list. And I know from using it, having seen the lists home in an early phase and now using it day to day, that all of my existing lists just showed up. And they are now also all getting the new capabilities. So it's been really useful for me in how I use lists. And it's great to know that that's how you and the team built it. All right, Randy, are you ready for the hot seat?
I am ready.
All right, so I think the general question is, what is the goal to have this common files experience? I see that Teams is getting a new files experience. There's an experience that OneDrive and SharePoint have had, and maybe there's a little delta in what people see when they move from different app to app. Can you describe that strategy behind you as the files team, what you're doing, and maybe a little sense of where we're at in the journey?
Yeah, fun fact, the OneDrive team builds the file controls that you see across Microsoft 365. So whether you're in the OneDrive app or in Teams or in SharePoint, we build all those file controls, those list controls where you see the different folders. And our goal there really is to have a consistent experience. So it really feels like a suite, but you also have for the end user all the same capabilities, whether it be sharing or file commands. It all looks and feels the same, so it's a familiar experience. And then from the IT admin side, all those controls and policies they have in place have the same apply to all those same files and all those same experiences.
Gotcha. And so I know one question that I saw, which is maybe just a prompt to what people can expect to see in the new files experience in Teams, is one of the things that people are asking about since Ignite started was, when are we going to see that metadata support in Teams? And that's that metadata of being able to add columns and track different pieces of information per file. Is that something that we can give a little insight into where we're at with metadata on the files experience in Teams?
Yeah, so within shared libraries, within channels, the files tab, you have all that rich metadata and custom columns. We haven't brought it fully to the OneDrive files experience, but that's something that's really close to our minds and something that we'll bring over the next calendar year.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So back to tasks. Howard, I know that this is maybe out of the realm of tasks specifically in teams, but what is the role if we think about individual tasks with to-do, with the planner and tasks in teams more for the team? What is the role for project when people think of broader company tasks management in the context of what we're talking about today?
Yeah, we really, we think about project. One of the things that we did is we released, actually at the last Ignite a year ago, a new product called Project for the Web. And that was, the UI was totally rewritten to be based on and much more similar to Planner. It actually uses the same code as the Planner board and things like that. But it has the full Planner project scheduling engine under the covers. And so it has Gantt charts, and we're just releasing right now custom columns. And so we really think about, you know, project is, I mean, a way to say it is it's kind of Planner Pro now. We took the really familiar experience that people love about Planner, but gave it the power of project behind the scenes. And so I think people will find it a really easy way to grow up from Planner and to start sort of managing more complex projects, things, you know, when tasks have dependencies or you want to have really well-managed subtasks. And it's integrated with the Power Platform, so it has a ton of extensibility around it in terms of some of the customizations that you can do, because it is based on CDS and the Power Platform in the background. So all of the Power BI stuff that you would expect, Power Automate, all those great things come along with that. So it's really good for sort of organizational solutions and kind of higher end task management. But again, in a familiar, kind of easy to use new UI that we just shipped, and we're actually shipping that into Teams in the next few weeks. We're rolling it out right now. It's available to all our TAP customers, and so you can create full projects now inside of Teams. Pretty cool.
Wow. So no matter whether you've got individual tasks, team-oriented tasks, maybe I can flavor it with more lightweight task management for the team, all the way up to full-blown project management. In Teams, you're going to have a distinct experience that is getting better and better just from the user experience. So that's really great to hear. Okay, let's switch over back to lists. So if we can get Michaela back up. This is going to be a two-parter. One, I think, is a little bit of a nuanced question, so I'll try to get it right. But in lists, can they be contextual? So that if I'm in one particular column and I want to have it look up information from another column, can I do that? And if so, maybe just a little explanation of how. And if it's partially feedback, maybe directionally what we're thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually just responded to that question, so I'm happy we can talk about it.
Yeah.
So what we do have today is something called a lookup column, and I think that's slightly different than what Nigel was asking for there. And so the way the lookup column works is that you can connect a list into another list where you can pull information from an existing column into that list that you're focusing on. The scenario that I replied back in that comment was if you are filtering on column A in your list and you want it to auto filter the rest of that content in the list, we do not support that. The closest thing that we support is a feature called dynamic web part filtering, where you can go onto a SharePoint page and you can actually put in multiple web parts of lists or libraries, and you can set that context on which column will auto filter that next web part. So that's the closest thing that we'd have for an offering right there. We do have on our top of mind a lot of plans to improve that lookup experience that I was describing. The one that we have today gets the job done, but we'd love to make it even better.
Excellent. Well, I think we'll put ourselves on record. I know that it is a common action in the past when people needed a little bit more expertise to set it up, but we also know in the modern era that there's a lot of things that people want to do in a more simplified way. And maybe we will call that feature contextual columns. That seems to be a great way to describe it.
And I do like that, yeah.
So we like alliteration. So Randy, back to you. Got a question here that's all about PowerShell. So get your IT hat on. from a files perspective, do we have for OneDrive within the context of the commercial space, so within Microsoft 365, do we have commandlets to start, stop, pause, choose folders, unlink, manage backup, all those things in the OneDrive module? And if not, would any of that be on the roadmap?
Yeah, and Gaia saved me on this one because she answered it already, but just reading her answer, no, we don't have those commandlets available. We do have a number of group policies we provide for the sync client, and she posted the link in there. But there are several other ways to manage OneDrive outside of the commandlets.
Gotcha. I'll just ask if Gaia, is there anything that you want to add to that? It's certainly okay to be just audio only, or any insights in just leveraging PowerShell against OneDrive?
Not too much to add, but as I posted back in the answer, I'd love to learn more about the scenarios where those would be useful. As Randy mentioned, the main way we've had to manage the sync client is through group policy settings. But yeah, super curious to learn more about the scenarios where the scripting with PowerShell would be useful. So maybe in the comments, that would be helpful.
That's great. Well, thank you, Randy and Gaia, and to whomever asked that question. Please don't hesitate to use this time as a point of feedback. You really do have the right people on the call. I will claim to be the marketing person, but everybody else really is on the side of building product, taking feedback, wanting to make sure they're unblocking whatever your scenarios are. And there's been a ton of growth in the side of sync and of course in the side of managing OneDrive. And it's really due in part with people that you're hearing from. So don't hesitate to provide the feedback, explain the scenarios. That's really what we're here for. So on back to Howard and looking at tasks. It looks like you might have answered this one, but I just wanted to get a sense of if we hadn't painted that picture of the connection between planner and tasks and that connection of maybe being able to assign across the different experiences. I think some of it might just be it's the same thing and you're seeing from different endpoints. But if there was something to that question you wanted to add any on-camera nuance to.
Yeah, no, I think it's good to sort of reiterate. We have a lot of users of Planner inside of Teams. It's actually the #1 created tab inside of Teams today. And so there's a long history of people making tabs to run plans inside of Teams. There was also on the left navigation, there was always a Planner app that was there on the left side. And that is actually the basis for Tasks and Teams that we built on top of. And so Tasks and Teams is built on top of Planner. And what we did was we added in To Do and sort of your personal tasks and sort of joined them together into one app. And that's why we decided to rename it Task, because it felt like, because we were bringing two things together, it felt sort of natural to change the name a little bit to indicate that it was broader than just Planner for that app on the left-hand nav. So that's why you saw the name change, just to sort of be a nod to the combination of both your personal and your team tasks into one app. But yes, they're the same thing.
All right. Well, I saw a question around Project Nucleus, so we'll queue up Michaela. And I just want to preface, not only do we want to learn a little bit more about what does that mean when we say Project Nucleus and how does it apply to lists, but just for everybody, there was a little information that was sort of at the tail end of Jeff Teeper's session where you really get a glimpse of what does it mean for lists. So you'll hear Michaela describe it, but there was a really nice demo in Jeff Teeper's session, really easy to find. It's DB158. Beyond that is also a little bit lightly in our blogs if you want to just see it or learn more, but I think Michaela can best frame up what Project Nucleus is and what does it mean initially for Microsoft Lists later this year, early next.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be able to talk about Project Nucleus. Like Mark said, it was announced in Jeff's session. And what you were looking at there is first the ability to work with your lists offline. So if you are not connected to the internet, you have the ability to start using your list anyways. And so that's very exciting. But I think what I actually am most excited about with this is how fast your lists get when they're powered by Nucleus. And so as you see in the demos that are going to be done throughout this week, when you see someone filter on a list that has a couple, 60,000, 100,000 items, it is instantaneous. And so that is super exciting to see. And I think a lot of the demos we will go through and show you that that list actually is that large, just to really make sure that you believe it. And so it really lets you do that instant sorting, filtering, grouping, adjusting items. And then the other kind of that triple threat that it offers is there's that in between of being offline and on really fast internet. And so if you are on a slower connection, it no longer disrupts your work. You're able to still use the full power of lists and get your work done fast. So keep looking for that. I linked to the roadmap ID as well for Project Nucleus that you can follow as the feature rolls out. So keep looking there and for when you'll get it.
Awesome. The next one may or may not have been answered. I think, Randy, you did answer this in text, but I think it's worth describing a little bit more about what Add to OneDrive is, maybe the kind of the use case and how you do it. And the question is really, with Add to OneDrive, will there be a need to use the sync button on the SharePoint document library, or does some of that automatically happen when you do the Add to OneDrive? So if you just want to wax poetic, maybe, about Add to OneDrive, it's a great new feature.
Thanks, Chris, for asking the question. Yeah, Add to OneDrive is one of my favorite new features, and essentially what it allows you to do is to take any shared folder. It could be a folder that's a link to a team, and you can add a shortcut to that folder in your My Files view. So within OneDrive, you can go to your My Files view, and that folder, you'll see that folder with a little link icon by it. We're not moving the content, we're not copying the content, it's a link to that folder. But the great thing about it is that it shows up across all your experiences and all your devices. So if I'm on my mobile device or if I'm on the desktop client, I can see those same folders, those shared folders within the My Files view. The difference between that and the old sync button model is when you click the sync button, it only adds that folder on that specific device to the desktop. So you're kind of mounting that team site or that shared folder for that specific device. So Add to OneDrive is a little more versatile because it's across all your devices, and it's a little bit more seamless because you can choose the individual folder. So right now, we still have both commands available, and Add to OneDrive is in public preview very soon. But as we start to roll that out and as we get to a broader GA, we will transition folks and provide guidance to move people to more the Add to OneDrive model.
Excellent, thank you. Howard, back to you. I know it was a question that you answered, but I'm curious just if you kind of took it as feedback or what it is that you might want to expand on just a little bit. But when maybe will Microsoft Planner display a task ID, which is maybe the unique identifier? And so I know there's a ton of value with files, how you can track things uniquely, obviously with when you move things around, that's the unique identifier from a audit or an e-discovery perspective, but maybe just that unique identifier. What was the answer that you gave, and maybe just a little reasoning behind it? And I think you might be muted, Howard.
There we go. Sorry about that.
No
yeah, it's interesting because I hadn't actually heard that one before, and so it was a first time hearing that one. So I'm like, oh, I can see why you would want to see that. So I've noted it down, and we'll talk with the team about it. And I also wanted to encourage folks. We look at our user voice, our Planner user voice board a lot. It's really a great source of inspiration for us and next things to do. So if you guys want to make sure you get it up there and vote on it, that would be awesome. Because the team really does like that that tool, and we love getting the feedback there and having conversations with folks up there. So it is noted. Thank you for the feedback. And also anybody who's there, feel free to go up to user voice and add things and vote.
Yeah, super easy to use user voice. And when you see the notations about we got the feedback, we're thinking about it, it actually is rolling out, those are only able to be marked by the engineering team. So You do get a sense that they're paying attention. It's a really great place for feedback. And it's also a really great place to vote up in the context so the team knows what's the most interesting thing or the most important thing when you see something that's similar. Vote it up. You don't always have to add new. Always vote it up if you can. Moving back to Michaela from a list perspective, this one is around lists inside of Microsoft Teams. So they were seeing that there is this crossover. You had already covered around this evolution of SharePoint lists to Microsoft lists, but now when they're seeing lists inside of Microsoft Teams, it doesn't seem to be as fully functional, and I'll caveat that with yet, but I want you to answer kind of the where we're at now and what to expect when you see a list in Teams. Is it the same, we know the same backend, but the same experience?
Yeah, exactly. So the backend is the same, which means I want to see some 30 million item lists in Teams now because we can support it. So you could totally do that. And to be completely transparent, it's the same product. The front end, I like to think of it almost as a theme. So instead of applying, your SharePoint theme or the list theme, it's almost like you're applying the Teams theme, and then you get that really consistent purple color from the UX perspective, which makes the experience feel really native. And then the reason that we see some varying differences is that the Teams folks just GA'd, and so we are also still rolling out Microsoft lists. And so there's a little bit of like a 2 to 3 week disconnect on exactly which features have landed where. And so that's not an indicator of something not being in Teams. It really is just a rollout pattern. So it will be the same product. All the views we're talking about, all the new features we're talking about, it'll be the same experience across the 2 different places. It just depends where you like to work.
All right. Well, I think we have time for 2 more questions, and we're going to keep Michaela in the hot seat because the next question may or may not pit Howard versus Michaela. Are you guys ready?
I'm so ready.
Well, I know what's coming.
Yeah, so people are asking, Microsoft Lists is used to track data, and we promote it that way across whatever you describe as information to track. But what happens when that type of information is a task? How do we think about Microsoft Lists and anything task-oriented, maybe mostly Planner, working together, the distinct role they play? And in this context, they're asking about, well, what happens if I'm tracking tasks in a list? So I'll pitch it first to our tasks expert, but also to reflect on it from a list perspective. So first, Howard, your take.
Yeah, so one small secret is that I worked with Mark on SharePoint a long time ago. And so I'm a big SharePoint fan and a big list fan. So even though I work on Planner and Project today, there's a very soft spot in my heart for everything SharePoint. And SharePoint lists are really great for basically, building almost any kind of list. And so one of the things that gets confusing is, well, sure, you can build any kind of list, including a task list. But it's not finely honed to doing tasks, right? So things like, easily assigning it, getting on your phone, checking it off, having that loop around, show up in tasks and Teams, all of those things that we do, creating a task in a document, having that go into a plan, having that go into to do. There's a sort of a whole ecosystem about tasks that they're finely tuned around, where lists is great at doing sort of a whole slew of things, tasks, because they're so important for the way we do work. We decided to sort of double down and really invest in a great task experience. I will say that the teams have been talking a lot together about, hey, how can we integrate tasks and lists? Like, can I turn a list item into a task? Can I have a comment and turn a comment on a list item into a task? And so there's a lot of different ways we could integrate the 2 things. And we're talking through that and just making sure we get it right. Obviously, the list folks have been busy shipping. Congratulations. And so, I think that over the next few months, that will get much deeper conversation around that. But we really want to integrate the 2 in a deep way.
All right, so in 15 seconds, Michaela, I'm going to lead you in right where I think Howard left us off. We introduced soon coming now comments on list items added to the list itself. We just announced at Ignite @mentions coming to comments in lists. Does that start to lead us down the road that Howard was describing?
Man, I really hope so. Nothing has been formally announced yet, though. But like Howard was explaining, tasks are such an important way of how we get work done, and pulling them out and making them extremely special inside of the Microsoft ecosystem is critical. And especially with what Howard mentioned, where you can now go into a document and have this really powerful task ecosystem supporting you. List needs that as well. And so like he said, I think there's been so many meetings between the two teams where we really want to integrate better and get it right so that people can get their jobs done with the task ecosystem and the list. And so I think I saw a couple of questions coming in from that, and I hope that we answered it. If we didn't, please keep asking so that we can hone in on it.
All right, well, we're going to jointly assign both Michaela and Howard the task of investigating what is the future of tasks within the context of adding that into the list ecosystem. More to come, hopefully, from that. Last question is for Randy and possibly Gaia on the back end, just listening for feedback. Will the OneDrive sync experience be cross-platform? And in this context, the platforms that they're talking about is moving from the PC to a tablet or a phone. Is that something that there would be? We know there's an offline experience when you're using OneDrive as an app from the App Store or from Google Play. But can you talk about the synergy between the different endpoints when it comes to actually syncing?
Yeah, sure. Sync is a little bit of a loaded term. If you're talking about actually synchronizing the files that you choose to be online versus offline, that for the mobile applications, it's a little bit different technology. It's not really sync. You kind of choose which files you want to move offline. But if we're talking about the feature add to OneDrive, one of the great parts that I mentioned earlier was when you add that shortcut on the desktop client, it will show up on the mobile client, on the web, and all those same files that you have within that shared library or that shared folder, you'll see them across. So in that sense, yes, they are all synced across, but it will depend on having that add shortcut to OneDrive enabled.
Excellent. Well, I want to let everybody know that we are at time. I want to thank Randy, Michaela, and Howard and Gaia for answering questions out loud or on camera, and to everybody on the back end, Microsoft MVPs and attendees for asking the questions and, of course, providing the answers, insights. I think we got a ton of feedback. I hope we got your questions answered for making time to join us. We have a few links here if you want to learn more or dig in more specifically about working with files in Teams. There's a link here. These are all shortcut links that will take you to either articles or resource centers. You can learn more about Microsoft Lists at aka.ms/mslists, and you can learn more about Planner, a great support article with a lot of help and how-to content. You can always follow us at the various product handles. Each of these individuals certainly are on task in terms of within Ignite. If you have follow-up questions for me, Randy, Howard, Michaela, Gaia, I'm sure everybody's open to taking those questions beyond today. But again, thank you for your time. I hope the rest of Ignite, whether it's early in your day, midday, late in your day, I hope to see you again in the early mornings tomorrow throughout the rest of the day. But we do enjoy spending time with you, and we really appreciate your time. So thanks for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of the day, morning, night. Signing off. Thank you.